Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I hope you're doing well, because today we're diving into something a little bit different. I thought it'd be fun to put together a top 5 list of Digimon that I personally think are must-haves. Now, before we get too deep into this, let me clarify how I came up with this list. It's not just about who's the strongest or who can delete a boss in one shot. For me, it's about a mix of things. I'm talking utility, potential evolutions, overall flexibility, and of course, a little bit of personal bias, because sometimes you just gotta go with the Digimon you vibe with the most. Now, a quick side note before we start. A lot of these Digimon on the list are ones I've been using heavily in my own game because I'm planning around my main story team. That means they're already a bit too strong for me to really show off a raw demonstration. So instead of giving you a direct test run, I'll show you how I've got them set up, including their personalities, traits, and movesets. I'll also explain why I think they shine. At the end of the day, though, you don't have to take my word for it. You can experiment with them yourself, and probably find some crazy combos I haven't even thought of yet. Alright, with that said, let's kick this list off. Coming in at number 5, we've got Dracmon. Now, I'll admit this one is a little different from the others because I haven't fully invested in my Dracmon yet. The plan is to raise him from scratch during my story playthrough, but even from the start, Dracmon shows a ton of potential. He's got a surprisingly solid stat spread with good attack and magic attack. The standout thing, though, is his first skill, which heals him for a percentage of the damage he deals. If you think about that for a second, it's kind of ridiculous. If you can pump up his damage output, he basically becomes this little vampire that just refuses to die. For abilities, I think anything that increases his scaling over time is great. Something like Meditation or Steadfast Emotion fits perfectly. But you could also get creative. For example, using Booing with a debuff skill to lower enemy SPI can be nasty. There's also the idea of pairing him with Great Embrace or Fortifying Charge, since those activate on heals. Technically, Dracmon's skill isn't a heal in the traditional sense, but it does restore health, so maybe it interacts. I haven't tested it enough yet, but it's definitely something worth exploring. That's the fun of Dracmon. He's got multiple ways you can build him, which makes him really exciting to keep around long term. Alright, let's move on to number 4, and this one might surprise some people. Chuumon. Yes, the little prankster rat is on this list. First reason, he looks absolutely ridiculous and I love it. Second reason, his skill is way better than it has any right to be. Third reason, did I mention he looks ridiculous? He's one of those Digimon where you laugh at him until you realize he's actually wrecking your opponents quietly in the background. Here's why. Chuumon has an ability that gives you a 30% chance to poison the enemy. Poison might not sound flashy at first, but it is insanely strong in practice. It chunks 6% of the target's max HP every turn, and bosses hate it, because it sticks until cleansed. That's free damage you don't have to work for. And if you really want to double down, you can slap Prankster on him and raise that chance to around 40 to 50%. That makes it way more consistent. For my Chuumon, though, I actually went a slightly different route. I gave him planning ahead because I wanted him to focus more on setting up my other Digimon. So, while Poison is still there as a side bonus, his main role is buffing my team. He's got moves that boost crit, attack, and defense. I use him as this sneaky little support that makes my heavy hitters even scarier. It's honestly hilarious when the silly rat ends up being one of the most valuable pieces in a fight. At number 3, we've got Zubamon. This pick is less about crazy abilities and more about a really balanced stat spread. Zubamon has strong attack and surprisingly good defense, so he feels like a natural defender type. I know it's easy to say every Digimon can attack if you stack enough stats, but I wanted to lean into his tanky side. For abilities, I went with Counter. Now, I've talked about Counter in a previous video, and I wasn't sure about it at the time. But after chatting with some folks and testing more, it turns out Counter has a really solid chance of activating when your health is down around 10 to 20%. When it triggers, it completely nullifies incoming damage and lets you strike back. That's huge, especially if you're building him as an offensive tank. Later, when taunt skills get added, I can see Zubamon just sitting there eating hits and punishing enemies for even trying. For the Dragon Ball Dokkan fans out there, imagine TEQ Super Vegito dishing out counters for free. That's kind of the vibe. Now, if you want something more reliable for long-term content, I'd recommend Steadfast Heart instead. Counter is fun and flashy, but it's a bit of a gamble. Unless Zubamon gets a specific skill that benefits from being attacked first or going last, Steadfast Heart or even follow-up are safer bets. But either way, he's got great versatility and will age really well as content gets tougher. Alright, we're down to number 2, and honestly you could flip this with number 1 depending on your preference. But for me, number 2 is Agumon. Or Gilmon if you prefer, since he's right there in the same conversation. Gilmon's stats are just a little lower overall, especially since he doesn't have a Jogress option like Agumon does, but both are incredible. Agumon is just the complete package. He's got strong damage, he's got iconic evolutions, and of course there's Omegamon. Let's be real, that alone makes him a must-have. When it comes to building Agumon, I'd recommend different paths depending on your goals. If you're just playing through normally, Slow Starter is a fantastic pick. If you're thinking more about endgame content, Steadfast Might is good too. But my personal favorite has to be Haymaker. It bumps your crit damage multiplier from 1.3 to 1.5, and that scales insanely well once you're stacking stats to the max. I could honestly make an entire video just about how to optimize Agumon, and I probably will. But for now, just know he's a beast no matter what angle you build him from. And that brings us to number 1, my personal favorite, V-mon. Now, like I said, you could swap him with Agumon, and I wouldn't argue, but for me, it's all about preference. V-mon has always been one of my favorites, and in this game, he's an absolute powerhouse. He's got great speed, great attack, and like Agumon, he just does everything you want. He's reliable, he's flexible, and he's a lot of fun to use. Plus, come on, it's V-mon. He's the blue dragon boy, and he's number 1 in my heart. Before I wrap this up, though, I do want to give a quick honorable mention. The Goblimon trio. I talked about them in my last video, but I have to bring them up again. These guys are just way better than I originally thought. In the last showcase, I didn't really have their skills set up properly, but now I've got them built out, and they're hilarious. Each one brings something different, but the standout synergy is Poison. With Poison being a permanent damage over time effect that doesn't fade after a few turns, it's way too strong to ignore. Throw them into a fight, and they'll quietly stack damage while your main team does the flashy stuff. They're underrated, and I think they deserve way more love. So that's my list. 5 must-have Digimon, plus the honorable mention Goblimon squad. Of course, this is all just my opinion, and I'd love to hear yours. What Digimon have you found yourself falling in love with? Which ones do you think are secretly overpowered? Drop your favorites in the comments because I always enjoy reading what you guys come up with. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hop into the Discord if you want to hang out. The game is almost fully here, and I'm beyond excited to dive in even deeper. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.